Within the combined context of the effect of popular and political developments in the Arab region on some Syrian citizens, and the systematic intent of some foreign parties to exploit this, in a plot to discredit Syrian national attitudes on the regional and international arenas, Syria began to witness in the first half of 2011 a series of social and political interactions that would push the Syrian state and society along one of two paths, either towards disintegration and fragmentation, giving Syria's enemies a chance to realize an aim they have always worked for, or towards the reestablishment of a strong, modern and more developed homeland. The story began in March when groups of citizens started to take to the streets in Damascus, Daraa and Banyas, calling for reform, freedom and some livelihood demands. Soon afterwards, the political leadership of the country adopted these demands in order to absorb them and fulfill them within its agenda of continuous reform. The leadership immediately formed investigation committees to look into causes of some unfortunate events in some areas, particularly in Daraa, and to identify those responsible for them in order to bring them to justice. On March 24th, the political and media advisor in the presidential office, Dr. Buthayna Sha'ban, held a press conference in which she asserted that the regional leadership of the Ba'ath Arab Socialist Party, chaired by Regional Secretary President Bashar al-Assad, discussed the political developments, popular and service situation, the government performance, and the efficiency of the political, administrative, and security institutions in providing citizens with the best services, securing decent living conditions, and protecting their private lives, freedom, and dignity. The leadership also looked deeply into the unfortunate events in the governorate of Daraa, the riots and the sabotage acts against public buildings, and the full of martyrs in that governorate who are dear to the hearts of all Syrians. Dr. Sha'ban announced a package of resolutions taken by the leadership in the fields of citizens' living standards and services, besides another series of resolutions in the political arena. Nonetheless, what gradually began to surface is the fact that there were certain people and parties who wanted to catch the train of the popular movement in order to achieve two things. First, they wanted to divert the situation away from its declared peaceful path. And secondly, they wanted to provoke and target the security men who largely and to a later phase remained committed to instructions to keep the highest level of self-restraint and not to use arms even in self-defense. One of the proofs among dozens of similar examples was that the national and university hospitals in Latakia received on March 25th nearly 150 wounded victims, including 130 security men, whose injuries came from bullets, knife stabs, and assaults with sharp tools.
كلهم متعرضين لطلق ناري متعدد بالوجه بالرأس والأطراف والبطن.
All the victims were chillingly exposed to gunshot of different calibers targeting the head, face and limbs. Each one of them sustained a number of shots, all got the same direction, tilting from upper to down direction. This indicates that this was sniping atop the roofs of buildings and houses. The highly sophisticated weapons used to do result in severe infraction injuries.
In Daraa and other areas which witnessed limited popular movements, the phenomenon of infiltrating the ranks of demonstrators became a clear kind of organized crime by armed gangs that attack people, public and private properties, security headquarters, military positions, and service facilities, including hospitals, ambulances, and fire vehicles and their crews.
I couldn't figure out where the bullets were coming from, so we used the fire engine as a shield. Some snipers were on the roofs and one of them shot me in the foot. Some security men near me were also injured. We remained there until an ambulance came to move us here.
Targeting civilians, the military and security, and mutilating the bodies of the victims were accompanied with a sectarian sedition campaign undertaken by a prominent religious figure in the Arab and Islamic world, in parallel with a huge media assault waged by some Arab and international TV channels. It later appeared that this preset, instigative and organized plot was no less dangerous in targeting Syria's land, government and people away from all the professional criteria of credibility and objectivity. This was revealed through hosting and polishing up of the so-called eyewitnesses, human rights observers, and activists of all types and shades, as well as those dubbed Syrian opposition figures who proved to have one major intent, namely taking revenge against the Syrian regime more than claiming support of the demands of the Syrian people.
I'm originally from Daraa. On 3 occasions, I was offered money in return for smuggling weapons into the government.
Away from all of this, President Bashar al-Assad continued to receive the popular delegations of various areas who briefed him on their concerns and demands as the Syrian leadership continued its efforts to differentiate between these demands and those inside Syria and abroad who were trying to exploit these demands for their own interests.
Success makes you feel safe and secure. In battles, you know your enemy and you know the plan, but after the battle, you do not know what is being planned against you. Therefore, after each success, we must work more to preserve it and to protect ourselves from any outside plot. It is obvious today that Syria is subjected to a large plot whose threads extend from distant and close countries. It also has some extensions inside our homeland. In its timing, not in its shape, this conspiracy relies on what is going on in the Arab countries. If there were really callers for reform, and I believe that all of us are, we would go along with them without knowing what is actually going on. Therefore, they very cleverly mixed up 3 elements: sedition, reform, and the daily needs. The majority of the Syrian people call for reform. You are all reformists. Most Syrian people have needs that have not been fulfilled. We used to defer, to discuss, and to criticize because we have not fulfilled the needs of many citizens. However, sedition came in order to lead the other 2 factors, using them as a cover. So, it has been easy to seduce many people who took to the streets in good intention at first. After all, we cannot say that everyone who participated in this is a plotter. This is not true. We want to be realistic and clear about this. The inhabitants of Daraa are the people of true patriotism and genuine Arabism. They are the people of chivalry, gallantry, and dignity. They will surround the few who wanted to create chaos and to undermine the national texture. Those few took their plot to other cities, like Latakia, with the same mechanism of murder, intimidation, instigation, and so on. There were clear instructions not to injure any Syrian citizen. But unfortunately, when things go down to the street and the dialogue takes place in the streets, not in the institutions, it is natural that chaos and reactions will prevail, along with what we call the instantaneous mistakes. Thus, bloodsheds. This is what happened, as you all know. Victims fell. This is Syrian blood, which concerns all of us. This is our blood. The victims are our brothers, and their folks are our folks. There are other measures that have not been declared on the 24th of March. Some of them are related to the consolidation of national unity. Others are related to the combat of corruption, to information, and to increasing job opportunities. They are being prepared to be declared. The previous government has been working on them, and they will be among the priorities of the new cabinet. I think it is our duty to offer the best, not the fastest, to the Syrian people. We need to be fast, but not hasty. Some would appear on satellite channels to say, this is not enough. We say to them, we do not have what is enough to destroy our homeland. We acknowledge their cleverness in choosing highly sophisticated methods in what they have done, but we recognize their stupidity in selecting the wrong people and the wrong homeland where this sort of plots cannot pass. We tell them, you have no choice other than drawing the lessons out of your continuous failure, while the only option for the Syrian people is to learn from their constant successes.
On the very next day after his speech, the President gave directives to the chairman of the Higher Judicial Council to form a special committee to make immediate investigations into the events that claimed the lives of some civilian and military men in the governorates of Daraa and Latakia. The President also gave directives to form a committee of senior judiciaries to study and enact a legislation to ensure the preservation of the security of the homeland and the dignity of the citizen, and to combat terrorism as a prelude to lift the state of emergency, stipulating that this study should be completed before April 25, 2011. To consolidate national unity, the President called for the formation of a committee to study carrying out the recommendation of the 10th Regional Conference of the Ba'ath Arab Socialist Party concerning the settlement of the problem of the census of 1962 in Al-Hasaka Governorate, provided that this study be completed before April 15, 2011, and submitted to the President to issue the appropriate legal merit. The President also issued Decree No. 44 of March 30, 2011 concerning the increase of net monthly wages and salaries. Yet, at the footfall of foreign mobilization and instigation, accompanied with media fabrications and alarmist exaggerations about the events in Syria, the circle of incidents widened to engulf towns in the Damascus countryside, Homs, and its environs, as well as some towns in the northeastern Syria. Thus, sabotage, terrorism, and ambushes targeting civilians, security forces, and even the army increased. As certain voices on the streets broke the previous limits of their demands, turning them from the reformist nature to that of Qaditat, calling for overthrowing the regime and thus the homeland altogether, the threads of external plots began to surface with detected operations of weapon smuggling and recruiting agents and saboteurs from abroad.
We got orders from Ahmed Aoudi, who is the messenger between me and the Lebanese deputy Jamal al-Jarrah, to arm ourselves and start the operations to back up our brothers in Daraa and other Syria governorates like Latakia and Banyas. Ahmed is a close friend of mine for more than a year and a half. He told me we should fire on the protesters, the demonstrations, and the youth supporting the president.
Criminal acts did not stop at infiltrating the ranks of Syrian citizens in the streets, but they extended to terrify people in neighborhoods and liquidating army officers and even their families as they are off duty, like the murder case of Brigadier Khadr Tilawi, who was killed in cold blood along with his 2 sons and his nephew. Their bodies were mutilated and thrown on the side of the road.
They have mutilated the body using choppers. What do they want from a 14-year-old boy in the 9th grade and from an officer who served the country for 42 years in order to keep it safe? Suddenly, he and his children are shot dead?
The fact that the cowardly assassins reached Syrian scientists and inventors does reveal the identity of the beneficiaries of such assassinations.
The main characteristics of this invention is the fact that it has 4,000 gigabytes capacity. That is, instead of using 4,000 CDs of 1 or 2 hours of audio and video recording, we can use 10 pieces of this device for archiving all of the television's material, for example.
The intimidation of Syrian citizens by the gangs of murder and organized crime reached the degree of leading the victims by force openly in broad daylight from their neighborhoods to torture them, shedding their blood and leaving them bleed to death. In spite of the emergence of huge security concerns among the people, the political leadership of the country continued its course of reform to implement its plan and to fulfill the needs of the Syrian street. This included dismissing government and security officials from their posts, issuing new decrees to cover, for example, the health insurance, granting financial exemptions to citizens and institutions, and granting Syrian citizenships to those registered as foreigners in Al-Hasaka records. This constituted a basic relief and a major breakthrough in a social issue that dates back to more than half a century and does concern certain strata of the Syrian community.
The resolutions issued by the President are for the benefit of the citizens and Syrian community as a whole, especially the resolution regarding granting the Syrian nationality. People started congratulating each other over the phone after this resolution.
I just wanted to get the citizenship so that I can serve the country as any other Syrian citizen.
We are very grateful and we are thankful for this resolution issued by Mr. President.
The latest description of this resolution is that it is historical.
We are very happy with this resolution. We appeal to any regular citizen. We need this step.
I've got my commerce baccalaureate but couldn't register for academic studies as I was considered as a foreigner.
It's a very big celebration to all the Syrian Kurds and people.
I have a baby girl who is 5-day-old only. I was about to register her as a foreigner, but now I will register her as a Syrian citizen.
Although this was in line with the interests of the overwhelming majority of the Syrian people, it was of no concern to those who obey the diktats of foreign agendas, who continue their acts of murder, sabotage and terrorism, to enlarge the list of Syrian martyrs, civilians, military and security men. The paradox is that most Arab and international TV stations continued to ignore the gruesome images of prepaid assassination and mobile crimes in some Syrian cities and areas. They even continued with the falsification of facts and rerunning scenes of dubious credibility derived from the internet, besides fabricating events like these clips allegedly occurring in Homs in central Syria, while the real setting place was An-Nuwayrat quarter in Al-Manama, capital of Bahrain. The complicated and immoral battle imposed on Syria politically and in the mass media has not blocked the reform resolution. A new government was formed and given definite directives from the President of the Republic to focus basically on bridging the gap of confidence between the people and the state institutions through transparency.
Of course, reforms are very important. The results of many reforms take time to appear. We cannot just say we are waiting for the results. Work must go on to deal with the needs of the people, to fulfill them within the available capacities. The needs are not confined to the economy. True, the economy is the major issue, and the daily living needs constitute the major problem. But the citizen needs services, security, and dignity. All these elements are interconnected. Dignity is not confined only to protecting the citizen from direct insults by anyone in or out of the government. The insult may mean neglecting the citizen, delaying his or her request in a certain governmental department, or demanding a bribe. What is important is to define a governmental timetable for each point, and when this timetable is made public, it becomes possible to know who is responsible for the failure in meeting it. With such reform realized, we would be able to fortify our homeland against the blowing regional or international winds. Our projects and draft laws must be attached to definite timetables. When the government says that it is studying a certain law, it should state that it will finish it up within a given time. Regarding this timing question, the follow-up office in the cabinet can help the Prime Minister in avoiding any failure by any official. We hear about corruption every day. This is a major disease and catastrophe in every society. It is a waste of money, morals, and potentials. It falls in full contradiction with any development process when it spreads. Many general ideas were introduced in the past to combat corruption, yet we need practical steps. I think the worst thing is to have an official accused of corruption.
أعتقد بأن أسوأ شيء هو أن يتهم مسؤول بالفساد. يعني هو حالة عامة.
It is always difficult to admit failure. We must not see any difficulty in admitting such cases, whether they are justified or not. What is more important is to be transparent about it and to define the reasons. People will understand, but the denial of failure is failure itself.
أعتقد هو الفشل بحد ذاته.
Since the early days of its formation, the new Syrian government has been working on putting its agenda into practical action through definite frameworks and timetables to gradually deal with the services and living standard issues of the citizens, moving from one governorate to another in order to meet with the popular and economic activities and discuss with them their relevant problems. Parallel to this, a new series of presidential decrees was issued, including lifting the state of emergency, abolishing the higher court of state security, organizing the right to peaceful demonstration, and assigning the task of investigating crimes and interrogating suspects to the judicial police. Meanwhile, some satellite channels continued their campaign of distortion about what is happening in Syria in an immoral and unprofessional way, distorting facts and creating parasites. Nonetheless, this had no effect on the majority of the Syrian expatriates abroad, who continued to organize their demonstrations and sit-ins in solidarity with their people, leadership, and motherland against all adversaries. Again, the criminal cells and armed gangs of terrorism increased their challenge to the state and the people to the degree of proclaiming Islamist emirates in some areas from which security forces withdrew to avoid frictions. With the spread of such chaos, rioting, and the mounting numbers of victims at the hands of these armed rebels, the people began to call for the urgent intervention of the army to restore safety and security, being the most important quality enjoyed by their beloved homeland.
We cannot tolerate any sabotage in Syria. This is our country and we need to preserve it. We call upon the army to deploy its troops to put an end to this mess and to stop whomever is working on ruining the country. This is our country and we will not allow anyone to spread chaos in it.
Enough is enough. Many sides started to intervene in our internal affairs, so the army should intervene to settle the issue.
For sure, we back the intervention of the army. Wherever it is deployed, the army is our savior. They are our brothers and fathers. We need to feel safe again. Enough is enough. Security men are protecting us, while the armed gangsters are the ones who started attacking us.
Real Syrians would not commit what is happening today. This is known, and the army should intervene.
We needed the intervention by the army to restore the security and safety of the country.
Accordingly, some units of the Syrian army started military operations that restored calm and security, found weapon hideouts and detained hundreds of armed and Takfiri gangsters, while hundreds of deceived people surrendered themselves to the authorities, which released them after they pledged not to commit any acts which are harmful to the interests of the country.
هو صف الجيش وبلشوا فيه للجيش.
When the army lined up, they began to attack it, partly with dynamites and partly with different kinds of weapons they had possessed. At the time, the army did not start anything.
He said that at any cost, and with every tool available, we have to fight and liquidate any person hindering our plans. We have to fight the regime and its men, rape their women, kidnap their children, and take them hostages. He promised me lots of money if I help him in this regard. I went back to my country, and he started to send me sums of money. I received 500,000 Syrian pounds.
Ibrahim gave me 50,000 Syrian pounds to go out for jihad. So I asked, how are we going to fight and kill our brothers? He said, do you know Sheikh Ahmed al-Sayasni? I said no. He said that this sheikh released a fatwa that those are Zionists and they are slaughtering our brothers, so we should slaughter them.
We used to bring weapons from Sheikh Walid, who used to say, the person who goes to jihad and kills the army soldiers is considered a martyr if he dies. He used to bring weapons from a Sayasni. He said that the one who dies for the sake of God is a martyr.
They walked down the street to the Ba'ath Party branch. The guy named Saud went up the stairs and asked, what is wrong with you people? Aren't you men? Why don't you come? This is our chance. Haven't you come to destroy? This party is our enemy. This party is Israeli. Let's destroy it. When the security man ran away through the gate, my cousin followed him and slashed him with a sharp sword on his left shoulder.
After 10 minutes, they called me directly on air.
Now to Homs with Zakaria.
The newscaster asked me about the situation in Homs.
You are introducing yourself as an eyewitness. What is going on in Homs today?
I said that there are demonstrations in Homs and there are martyrs falling. The security services are shooting on demonstrators. In the Baba Amr area, there are 20 people killed, though this area is 7 kilometers away from my house.
Within less than 2 months of unfortunate events and developments in their homeland, the Syrians overcame the attempts of others to interfere in their internal affairs and defeated the foreign conspiracies and the plots of those who exploited human rights slogans as a pretext to serve certain political schemes and agendas, as if the martyrs who fell on the Syrian soil were not human beings with the same rights with those the plotters drawl about. Baptized with the blood of their glorious martyrs, the Syrians managed to overcome this plight, generally speaking. Yet they are still working on getting rid of it fully and cleaning up all its traces, thanks to their national unity and their adherence to reform, which they stick to as much as their willingness to keep to their national attitude in support of the resistance and Arab rights, an attitude reflected in the performance of the presidency, regardless of the pressures, blackmails, crimes, and attempts to undermine Syrian national unity exerted by outside parties and their agents inside. The Syrian people and state share together the aspiration to create a new Syrian model of democracy, social justice, and higher degree of national cohesion, whose single title remains Unique Syria, the force of culture, not the culture of force.
What remains is to develop our institutions to proceed forward together with our laws and people. If we succeed, this will be a historical rebuff to the Orientalists who wrote a great deal about the Arab community and claimed that this region, because of its social fabric, was totally incapable of advancing along the democratic course. Our success will be a Syrian refutation of such claims, proving that Syria, in the Arab or the Middle East region, is capable of providing a model of cultural democracy in service of all its citizens.
في ديمقراطية حضارية تؤدي لخدمة كل المواطنين.
Syria.